The story begins in the darkest corner of the American South, where the air was thick with heat, mosquitoes, and secrets older than the plantations themselves. Most people today never heard of what happened there because those in power buried it, burned the records, and swore entire towns to silence. But deep in the swamps, under the branches of trees that still lean like old witnesses, the truth survived in whispers. It started with a song, a simple melody hummed by a young enslaved boy named Solomon, only 12 years old. People thought he was just humming to calm himself. But to those who listened carefully, the notes carried meaning. They weren't random, they were signals, messages disguised as music, directions hidden in rhythm, warnings carried through night air. Solomon had learned the art from his grandmother, a woman they called Mother Roots, because she knew the forest better than any map. She told him, "When they take your words, let your voice speak another way." And so, the song began to spread. One night, when the moon was thin and the swamp fog curled like spirits rising from the earth, Solomon walked away from the slave quarters. Barefoot, silent, he followed the coded tune he himself had created, each verse leading him deeper into the wild. He moved through vines, mud, and water until he reached an abandoned clearing that had once belonged to the native tribes. There, waiting for him, were 7 adults, men and women from different plantations, all breathing hard, all afraid, but all determined. "What news?" one whisper asked. Solomon's voice trembled. "They plan to sell 40 of our people at sunrise, including children." A heavy silence fell. Then the oldest man there, Isaac, stepped forward. His back was scarred, his hands rough, but his eyes burned bright. "We rise now," he said. "No more planning, no more waiting. Tonight." The air shifted. The swamp itself seemed to tighten around them, as if listening. This moment was the spark, a revolt that no history book would ever tell. Because what began that night would grow into something larger than any of them could imagine, a movement that lasted 12 years, a secret community hidden from the world, and the biggest cover-up in American history. But for now, Solomon simply stood there, a 12-year-old boy carrying a fire that would soon ignite a revolution. And from the shadows came the first chant, soft, trembling, but full of courage. "We are not afraid," the swamp echoed, and the uprising began. Back thousand, an indigent be Zeld. The first night of the uprising did not feel like a war. It felt like running. Solomon led the group through the swamp, the mud sliding under their feet, the water rising to their knees. The moonlight flickered through the twisted branches, and every sound, every frog, every splash felt like a warning. Behind them, dogs barked in the distance, growing louder. Someone must have noticed their absence. "Keep moving," Isaac whispered. "The swamp protects those who respect it." But the swamp also tested them. More than once, Solomon slipped beneath the water, swallowed by the marsh. Each time, a hand pulled him up Sarah's or Joshua's, or even Isaac's rough grip on his elbow. Each time he stood again, shaking but determined. When they finally reached the heart of the swamp, Mother Roots was waiting. Her hair gray, her body thin, but her spirit unshakable. She stood barefoot in the mud, leaning on a crooked staff carved with symbols. Somehow, she knew they would come. "You finally ready?" she said softly, her voice like cracking wood. "Ready or dead. Same thing for our people." Isaac stepped forward. "They coming for us. Dogs, riders, all of them." Mother Roots closed her eyes, listening not to Isaac, but to the swamp itself, the rustle of leaves, the wind on the water. "Then they'll find nothing but ghosts," she said. She guided Solomon to her side. "You started this. You will guide it." Solomon's heart pounded. "I'm just a child." Mother Roots shook her head. "You're the one who knows the songs. And these songs will move mountains." They built their first hideout that night, a place no map had ever recorded. They wove branches, mud, and vines into walls. They laid silent paths through the water. They dug tunnels beneath tree roots and learned how to make footprints disappear. By dawn, a small settlement existed where only swamp had been. The slave catchers arrived hours later. Dogs sniffed. Men shouted. Torches waved. But they found nothing, because the swamp, the ancient protector of the forgotten, had already swallowed the new rebels into its arms. That night, word spread through coded songs carried on the wind. More people slipped away from plantations. More footsteps joined the mud paths. More fires lit the hidden clearing. Solomon watched it all with wide eyes. "Is this real?" he whispered. Isaac placed a hand on his shoulder. "You've just built the first free city our people have seen on this land." Everyone. But none of them knew yet that this city, this secret, breathing miracle, would survive for 12 long years, untouched, unseen, and unstoppable, until someone they trusted betrayed them. For months, the swamp city grew like a heartbeat, quiet, steady, alive. More people escaped under moonless nights, following the coded songs Solomon planted along the wind. Some came bleeding, some came starving, some came with babies wrapped in scraps of cloth, but they all came with the same fire in their chest, freedom or death. They named the hidden settlement Maroon's Shadow, though outsiders would never hear that name. It stretched across the swamp like a secret kingdom, raised platforms woven from mangrove roots, smoke-hidden fires, and lookout posts disguised as fallen logs. Every child learned to climb trees. Every adult learned to fight silently. Solomon, now a little older, no longer felt like a trembling boy. He had become something else, a messenger, a scout, a living compass of songs. One evening, as the rebels gathered for strategy, Isaac spoke. "We need a way to strike back. Running keeps us alive, but it won't set our kin free." The group murmured. Fear battled with hope. Then Sarah stepped forward, her face still marked by the scar she got the night she escaped. "We know their routines. We worked those fields. We know the patrol routes, the storage barns, the overseer's cabins." Mother Roots nodded slowly. "Knowledge is a blade. Use it right. It cuts the chains. Use it wrong. It cuts your throat." And so the first missions began. At night, small groups slipped out of Maroon's Shadow to sabotage plantations. They freed chained families. They burned auction records. They destroyed whips, stocks, and torture tools. They cut holes in boat hulls so no more people could be shipped away. Some nights, plantation owners woke to find their fields carved with symbols, warnings written in ash and earth. Other nights, enslaved people simply vanished, leaving overseers confused and furious. Solomon led many of these missions, not with weapons, but with his voice. His melodies told rebels when to move, when to hide, when danger crept close. And soon, rumors began to spread among frightened slave catchers. "There's a ghost boy in the swamp. He sings, and people disappear." But the rebels were not invincible. One mission went wrong when a group tried to free a man chained in an iron shed. The lock was tougher than expected. Time slipped away. Torches lit the night. Voices closed in. Solomon crouched behind a tree, heart pounding, whispering urgently through the coded tune. But Isaac and Joshua were trapped. At the last second, Mother Root's horn echoed through the swamp, the alarm call. Rebels poured from the shadows like spirits, pulling Isaac free seconds before dogs reached him. They escaped, but barely, and everyone knew. The enemy was adapting. The swamp city's existence was becoming a rumor too dangerous for authorities to ignore. One night, as thunder rolled across the sky, Isaac called a full meeting. "Listen to me," he said. "They're bringing new men, militias from other states, paid hunters, more guns, more dogs." Some gasped, some clenched fists, some prayed silently. "We can't stop now," Isaac continued. "We've held strong for months. We can hold for years." Mother Roots lifted her staff. "And we will. But we must prepare for a storm we've never faced." Solomon looked around at the faces illuminated by firelight, people who trusted him, people who believed in him, people who depended on the songs he carried. A shiver ran through him. It wasn't fear. It was destiny pressing its hand on his back. He didn't know yet that the next 12 years would test him deeper than any swamp water ever had, or that the betrayal that would shake their world had already begun growing, quietly, inside someone sitting among them that night. The storm Isaac warned about arrived quietly at first, like a shadow slipping between trees. For years, Maroon's Shadow had operated like a living rhythm. Food was gathered, water was purified, watchers guarded the paths, and the coded songs, Solomon's songs, flowed through the forest like invisible messengers. But by the 4th year of the revolt, something changed. Dogs began appearing deeper in the swamp, closer than ever before. Hunters who once feared the marsh now walked with maps, new maps. Patrols that used to wander blindly now traveled straight towards secret paths, Only the rebels knew. "Someone is guiding them," Mother Roots whispered one night, her eyes narrowed at the shifting mist. "This ain't luck. This is knowledge." But no one wanted to believe it. Not until the night of the Great Burning. It started with a scream. A watchman on the northern ridge saw torches flooding through the trees like falling stars. Solomon heard the alarm horn and ran barefoot across the wooden walkway, heart pounding, breath burning. Isaac met him halfway, gripping his shoulder. "They've found the northern entrance. Move everyone south." Chaos exploded. Women grabbed children. Men grabbed tools, knives, and spears carved from tree roots. Fires were kicked out, supplies buried, homes dismantled in seconds. The rebels had mastered the art of vanishing. But the enemy moved fast. They broke through the first barricade, then the second, shouting orders, slashing at vines, shooting at shadows. Flames rose behind them, turning the swamp into a battlefield of orange light and black smoke. Solomon climbed a tree to scout. From the top, the view almost broke him. The northern quarter of Maroon's shadow was burning. Platforms crackled and collapsed. Smoke swallowed homes built with years of hope. The flames looked like a giant claw tearing into their sanctuary. He wanted to scream, but Sarah, climbing behind him, grabbed his arm. "Don't break now," she huffed. "You're the breath in all our lungs. If you panic, we die." Down below, Isaac shouted, "Fall back to the inner ring." The rebels moved like waves, coordinated through whistles, horn calls, and Solomon's trembling but steady voice. Mother Roots stood at the center of the chaos, staff raised, chanting words that seemed older than the trees themselves. The swamp wind shifted, carrying smoke away from the escaping rebels, confusing the dogs, slowing the flames. But even her power could not stop the betrayal. That night, the rebels finally caught him. A young man named Ephraim, quiet, nervous, often sickly, was found guiding the armed men through a hidden path used only by scouts. When captured, he collapsed to his knees, sobbing. "They promised to free my sister," he cried. "I didn't mean for this. I only told them one way in. I didn't know they would burn everything." The others surged toward him, fury boiling, ready to tear him apart. But Isaac raised his hand. "No killing from anger," he said firmly. "Not even now." Solomon watched Ephraim shaking, snot running down his face, his wrists tied with vine. A traitor, a human one, a desperate one. The rebels had survived 4 years, but this betrayal proved one terrifying truth. The enemy didn't need to conquer the swamp. They only needed one frightened soul to open the door. Maroon's shadow buried 22 homes that night. 3 rebels were missing. 1 child had been wounded, and the world they built felt suddenly fragile. When the survivors gathered in what remained of their city, Mother Roots stepped forward. Her voice was calm but heavy. "This was the first strike," she said, "but not the last. We rebuild. We fight smarter. We silence the paths that traitors know. And we prepare for a war that will not end soon." Solomon looked at the smoke still rising toward the moon. He realized then that the 12-year revolt would not be a story of constant victories, but of survival through loss, loyalty through fear, and belief through betrayal. And darker nights were still ahead. The Great Burning changed everything. Maroon's shadow was no longer just a hidden refuge. It became a fortress, sharp, alert, breathing like a wounded animal ready to strike. For weeks, the rebels rebuilt in silence. No more large fires. No more loud songs. No more careless footsteps on the wooden walkways. Every sound, every movement, every whisper carried fear with it. But fear did not break them. It sharpened them. Isaac reorganized the defenses. Sarah trained teams of scouts. Mother Roots reinforced the boundaries with traps older than any plantation. And Solomon's songs grew darker, deeper, heavier with warning. Some said he no longer sang like a child. Some said he sang like the swamp itself. As the years passed, the revolt transformed. Year 5. The rebels perfected hit and run tactics. They attacked supply wagons, freed entire families in minutes, and vanished without a trace. White militias cursed them as swamp phantoms. Year 6. A secret market formed inside Maroon's shadow, where blacksmiths shaped stolen metal into knives, and herbalists brewed medicines from swamp roots. The settlement now had healers, hunters, guards, and even teachers. Year 7. Solomon created a new system of coded drums. Their deep rhythms could be heard miles away and carried precise messages: danger, move, help coming, enemy near. Slave owners banned drumming on plantations because of him. Year 8. The rebels built elevated bunkers, hidden platforms high in the trees where warriors slept above the swamp fog, invisible to anyone below. These became the eyes of the rebellion. Year 9. A second traitor attempted to sell information. This time, the rebels were ready. He disappeared into the swamp and was never seen again. Year 10. Maroon's shadow now sheltered over 200 people, freed rebels, children born in freedom, wounded escapees, and elders who taught lost traditions. It was no longer a camp. It had become a nation. But with growth came risk. The enemy arrived in greater numbers. More soldiers, more gunfire, more torches, more fear, and the swamp, loyal as it was, could not hide a nation forever. One night, as Solomon stood guard on a high tree platform, he saw lantern lights flickering in the distance, dozens of them, moving with purpose. A chill ran through him. They were forming a half circle around the swamp, a slow, tightening trap. He tapped a coded rhythm on the wooden railing, a signal, a warning. Below, Isaac ran to him, breath heavy. "What did you see?" Solomon pointed. "They're closing in. 5 groups, maybe more." Isaac cursed under his breath. "We can't outrun this." Sarah climbed up behind them. "Then we fight." But Mother Roots, appearing silently from the shadows, shook her head. "No, fighting won't save us this time." Solomon swallowed. "Then what will?" Mother Roots turned to him slowly, her old eyes glowing in the moonlight. "You." Solomon froze. "Me? You're grown now. Your songs don't just warn people. They lead people. They lift people." She pressed her staff into his hand. "You must guide the children, the mothers, the wounded. Lead them deeper into the swamp, into the old lands, places even the enemy fears." Solomon felt his heartbeat in his throat. "I don't know the way." Mother Roots tapped his forehead lightly. "The swamp does, and it has been listening to your voice for years." Isaac stepped closer. "And what about us? What about the fighters?" Mother Roots answered softly. "You hold the line. You buy them time. You protect the escape." Sarah nodded, jaw tight with courage. Solomon looked from face to face the people who had raised him, fought with him, trusted him. His voice cracked. "But if they surround us, if they don't stop." Isaac put a hand behind Solomon's neck, steadying him. "Revolts don't survive 12 years by accident." He smiled faintly. "They survive because somebody stands in the fire while somebody else saves the future." A terrible truth washed over Solomon. The defenders, the fighters, Isaac, Sarah, the warriors. They weren't planning to survive this night. Mother Roots touched his cheek. "Your job is to make sure their sacrifice ain't wasted." Solomon felt something inside him split open pain. Love, fear, duty, all twisting together like burning rope. At that exact moment, the first gunshot echoed through the swamp. The final battle had begun. And Solomon, 12 years older, 12 years stronger, 12 years wiser, was about to lead the largest hidden escape in the history America tried to erase. The final night of the revolt came with fire in the trees and gunpowder in the air. The enemy pushed into the swamp with everything they had: militias, slave catchers, mercenaries, bloodhounds. Their boots sank into mud, torches hissed against wet leaves, and their shouts echoed through places no white man had ever walked. But Solomon had already moved. He stood at the front of a long line of mothers, elders, and children, over 100 souls, moving deeper into the swamp's ancient heart. A place whispered about in stories, but rarely visited. The old lands. A place where the water ran black, the air shimmered like spirits, and the trees leaned like guardians. Behind Solomon, the coded drums of Maroon's shadow began to roar a final rhythm of resistance. It wasn't a call to run, it was a call to fight. The warriors stayed behind: Isaac, Sarah, dozens of men and women who had turned pain into armor. They formed a living wall at the main entrance of the swamp, blocking the path with spears, blades, rocks, and courage. Solomon heard Isaac's voice rise above the drums. "Hold the line, hold the line, hold the line." Gunshots cracked, dogs barked, screams cut the night, flames rose somewhere behind the trees. Solomon didn't look back. He couldn't. If he did, he would break. Mother Roots walked beside him, leaning on her staff. The swamp thickened, the mud rising almost to their thighs. Children cried, women stumbled, elders gasped. "Keep singing," Mother Roots whispered. "Your voice keeps the fear away." So Solomon sang, not loudly, not joyfully, but steadily, a low, humming melody that guided feet, soothed hearts, and warned the swamp of their coming. After hours of pushing forward, the group reached a place where the trees parted, revealing an enormous patch of still water, black as night. Fireflies glowed above it like floating stars. "Where are we?" a child asked, trembling. Mother Roots planted her staff in the mud. "Home." The people looked confused, but Solomon understood. The old lands were sacred. No patrols dared enter this place. Too many stories, too many disappearances. Here, for 12 years, the swamp city had found a new life. They built platforms high in the trees. They built new shelters from woven moss and bark. They created floating gardens. They used roots and branches to block every possible path. This new settlement would be harder to find, harder to burn, harder to betray. Solomon became the voice of the community, the one children followed, the one women trusted, the one elders leaned on, and for the first time he realized something. He was no longer the ghost boy. He was a leader, but victory always comes with loss. At dawn, when the enemy finally retreated, only a handful of fighters returned to the old lands. Isaac didn't return. Sarah didn't return. Dozens didn't return. Solomon's breath broke as he saw the survivors bleeding, burned, limping, carrying the weight of sacrifice on their backs. Mother Roots held his shoulders. "They kept their promise," she whispered. "Now keep yours." Solomon fell to his knees in the mud, tears burning like salt. Everything in him wanted to scream, to collapse, to disappear, but he didn't. He wiped his face. He stood. He turned to the people who depended on him, the children who had lost fathers, the women who had lost husbands, the elders who had lost sons. "We survive," he said quietly. Then louder. "We rebuild." Then louder. "We continue." The people stood with him, and in that moment, under a sky still smoky from battle, a new nation was born, one that lasted 4 more years, hidden in the swamp, protected by coded songs, shifting waters, and the unbroken spirit of its people. By the time the 12-year revolt finally ended, Maroon's shadow was gone, abandoned to keep it safe from discovery. But the old lands remained. People lived there free, hidden, defiant. Children grew up knowing no chains. And Solomon became a legend whispered across states, the boy who sang freedom into the trees. The leader of the revolt America erased. And though history tried to bury the truth, the swamp never forgot. The trees never forgot. The songs never forgot. And now, neither will you.